As I was kindly introduced, my name is Agata Konczal. I work at the Netherlands at Wageningen University. Even though my background is in social and cultural anthropology, as Urszka already said, I like to think about myself as a forest anthropologist. I'm interested in looking for ways how our social worlds are connected with the natural landscape of forest. And I'm very much interested in using forest as a mirror to understand our societies, to understand changes in the societies. I need to just figure out how to move this. Like this. So my so far work can be actually summarized by a question: what is a forest? Where is a forest? When is a forest? Who or with whom is a forest? And who decides about forest? I like to also think about forest as this multi-species, multi-dimensional, entangled relations we kind of discover and encounter. So my talk for today is titled Forest for or in Uncertain Futures. And I would like to invite all of you today to think together, and I hope later also to dialogue and the discussion about the relationship current societies have with the forests, but also about the changes in this relationship, the changes we want, desired changes, but also unwanted, undesired changes in relationship between societies and forests. So the question of future is fundamental for our thinking about both societies and forests. What is certain is that our future is uncertain. Our future is uncertain because the future of our planet with our forest in the time of climate change is uncertain. There is no future for society without future with forests. But I'm not talking and thinking only about forests as sources of wood or providers of oxygen or nature-based solution for problems we created. I'm thinking also about forests because we need a forest to have society, both for our physical survival, but also symbolically, to be well-beings. Paraphrasing the title of Donna Haraway's book, Forests Are Good to Think With. So what I would like to do with you today, I would like to think with forests. So forests are currently at the center of global debates, discussions about environmental crisis, climate crisis, biodiversity crisis, economic crisis, but also at the center of global debates and discussion about equality, or rather inequality, responsibility, neoliberal capital, and our economies. Social expectations for forest and towards forest are changing, and also the social demands for forest are become increasingly diverse. What you can see here in this picture is actually social disobedience. This picture was taken in 2018 in Białowieża Forest on the border between Belarus and Poland during the social conflict about this forest. And what you can see is actually social disobedience. Social disagreement with state-performed forest management, but also social disagreement with state definition of forest. So society there did not agree with what state think and do in the forest. And I would like you to remember this picture because I will actually come back to that. So controversies regarding forests become more complex, and they are also coined by uncertain futures. In many parts of Europe, but also globe, this discussion are especially heated in the light of natural disturbances. Fires in the Mediterranean region, outbreaks of beetles in Central Eastern Europe, storms in the north. So in these places, the question very often is not if a forest should reappear, but when, how, and for whom, and also what kind of forest should reappear there. Should our restoration actions and forest management action there prioritize climate mitigation or climate adaptation, because these are not the same? Should they maybe prioritize wood production, biodiversity conservation, needs of local residents, tourism, and how all of this can be mitigated on the ground, but also in public and policy debates and discussions, and also in decision-making. So basically what we want forests to become a remedy for our social problems. We want forests to be a cure. But different answers to the question I just raised result in forest-related conflicts, in new waves or forest-related conflicts. So we fight. We fight for our forest, and we fight about or around our forest. So the authors of the study I'm showing you now show that actually our conflicts about nature and our conflicts about forest are very often actually the conflict about the vision for forest management and nature conservation, and also a conflict about the relationship we would like to have with forest around us. So actually in the study they show that the Central and Central Eastern Europe are parts of Europe where currently during the last 5 years we have the biggest number of conflicts around forests. And two countries, Germany and Poland, are countries with the highest number on conflicts about and around forests. So what is behind that? What is behind this conflict? Simply, different people in different places want different things from forest and in the forest. So I'm showing you now the study my previous colleagues from European Forest Institute conduct within Clearinghouse study, and they prepare and conduct a representative survey in all EU countries. And this graph is based on more than 32,000 answers they collect within Europe. And what we can see here that we as society, we as European society, if anything like this exists, if we can generalize, value our forest mostly for aesthetics, air quality, also habitats from plants and animals, also for our health. And at the end, actually we see so-called provision ecosystem services, so fuel wood, wood for timber, and hunting. So we can see how our social expectations are actually are divided. So thanks to the development of so-called information society, where news travel faster than our thoughts, society has a platform to express this different expectation towards forest and to build new communities around this expectation. And this is actually an example of such a new community that emerged in Poland a few years ago before the COVID pandemic, the NGO called Forest and Citizens, that concentrate on supporting and mapping conflicts and social engagement around forest. And they map more than 400 so-called conflicts around forests, all across the country. But when you Google forest conflict in Europe, you won't see the map I just showed you. Most likely you will see the conflicts about the remaining patches of old growth forests in Europe. The Carpathian Mountains, the Białowieża Forest, I already mentioned, the Tatra Mountains on the border between Poland and Slovakia. These are the places where society fight for keeping the remaining old growth forest wild. These are the places of the heated debates, discussion about what to do with our remaining old forest. But these places are also important because debates, discussion, and social engagement around this forest shape European decision-making, policy-making around the forest. These places, they actually have a very heavy symbolical weight and power to actually shape what European decision makers include in their documents. And also actually they shape our imagination of what wild forest in Europe is and could be or should be. These places are also very important because these places of the heated conflicts about old growth forest, They are also places where we discussed if something is natural or if it belongs to natural order, and if it does not, where it belongs as a result. Who does belong and who is foreign, us and others. These are the discussions we have in these places. Forest narratives have become spaces for the struggle for power, dominance, resource, and identity. And actually, I'm showing you here the work from the colleagues from European Union that try to map the remaining forests, so you can actually see how little of them we still have in Europe. So let me now to tell you a very short story from Białowieża Forest. The last chapter, the last part of this 12,000-year-old story. So Białowieża Forest, it's in Polish, Puszcza Białowieska. It's a forest that is located on the border between Poland and Belarus. It's frequently referred by natural scientists and forest ecologists as last large, close to natural temper lowland forest in Europe. And we can observe the continuity of the tree cover in this forest since the last 12,000 years, so since the last glaciation. And during the last, actually 35, 40 years, it's also a place of the heated conflict about forest management and nature conservation. But also during the last 7 years, it's been a place where society fight or clashed with the state forestry about forest protection and forest conservation. But today, I would like to leave the bark beetles, dying spruces, and even climate change that is triggering this natural disaster for another story. Today, I would like to tell you about the wall. Since August 2021, planned and systematically organized actions of bringing migrants and refugees to the borders with the EU countries started. Poland was one of these countries, and the Białowieża Forest became actually an entrance gate to the EU for thousands of people. Refugee and migrants, depends who you ask, different label for these people you will get. From Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, Ethiopia, and many other countries were encouraged to travel via Belarus and Russia to EU. The so-called hybrid war, planned by Belarus and Russia to destabilize the situation in the EU, started. So for the right-wing government in Poland that time, this old-growth forest, Białowieża Forest, became a synonym of the national safety. Forests become, again, the synonym of the nation and its heritage. The new threat for this forest, for this time, and for the forest and the nature, were so-called illegal migrants and refugees, but not any refugees, non-European Muslim, the other refugees. The refugees that, according to the right-wing government, do not belong to the forest and do not belong to the nation. What does it mean in practice? It means more than 50,000 so-called pushbacks, pushing back people from Poland who just crossed the border back to Belarus, refusing them the possibility to apply for asylum and letting them die in the forest. Until today, more than 100 people died in this ancient forest. So the wall was built to stop them. It was built in 2022. It's more than 186 kilometers long and cost the Polish government, supported by EU, more than 35 million euro. It cut the forest into the half and stopped the migration of the wildlife. Impact this pristine forest. It kills both people and the animal, both society and forest. So the topic of the wall and the forest became again one of the main topics during the parliamentary election in Poland that took place on the 15th of October this year. So Polish citizens in the referendum that was attached to the parliamentary election were actually asked if they want to keep the wall in the forest and if they want to accept the so-called illegal migrants. The story of the forest and the story of the wall was captured in Agnieszka's Holland movie green border that won in September this year a special award in Venice Festival. So in this movie, but also this story, shows how the place of forest in social imagination and social perception of forest is changing. So if it's changing, how it was in the past. So in Europe, especially in the Central and Central Eastern Europe, but maybe I should add Slovenia here as well, but you are here to teach me about that. The forest, and especially this notion of wild forest, play a very important role in shaping national identities. German, Polish, Lithuanian, Latvian, Romanian, and so on. This was happening both in the 19th century when these national identities were shaping for the first time, but also during the time of so-called transformation and in post-socialistic societies. There's actually quite some literature on that. So in these countries, history from the forest, but also history in the forest, was and is used as an important part of the national myths, national stories, and national identities. It's used for drawing lines of belongings and the otherness, the right and wrong version of the past, but also right and wrong version of the future. So when pondering the question of what is happening in the modern society and how to describe its contemporary dynamics, it's worth pausing to look what is seen and portrayed as a forest or broader nature, and what is happening in the forest today and with the forest. As I already mentioned, forest narratives are not neutral or naive. On the contrary, they are related to more complex discourses and become exemplification of specific worldviews. Nowadays, definitions of forest have been permanently built into discussions about past, present, and the futures of society. These various and competing stories about the forest are situated somewhere between the old earth, as Bruno Latour put it, and alternative vision for the futures. They are part of our search for uncertain future we all would like to have. So what kind of future can all of this forest conflict bring to us? Conflicts include a call for change and also a perspective for change. Lena Buscaglia wrote that change is the end result of all true learning. So currently in Europe, in so-called Western world or global North, however you want to call it, we are at the crossroad in terms of our relationship with forests and more broadly with nature. Our increasing disassociation with natural world is paired with the global magnitude of our human impact on the planet, termed Anthropocene, new global epoch of the man. These crises, they reflect deeper issues, such as dominant conceptualization of separation between humans and nature, so-called crisis of consciousness. So we need to learn again, or rather unlearn, of what we know about nature and forest, and stop seeing them as separate from us, endless, unlimited resources for our economics and consumptions, demarcation lines, borders of belonging, or place for chosen identities and separation. But this we can do only together. For this, we need to move from the perception, the place where we start with, I know the answer, to the world where we want to look for the answer together. But for now, we do not have all the answers yet, neither for forest nor for society. And sometimes I think that maybe we keep asking the wrong questions. So today I would like to leave you with the hope that the forest holds the answers to the question we have yet to ask. Thank you.